She looks perfect, but something always feels off. She says the right things, smiles at the right time, tells you she wants something real. But when it's quiet, when no one's watching, when you need her to be real, she disappears. You ignore the gut feeling. You explain away the red flags, because part of you wants to believe she's different, that this time, maybe you found a woman who means what she says. But deep down, you feel it. There's a mask, and you're the one she's performing for. She says she's loyal, but still entertains male orbiters. She says she's healing, but uses that to justify toxic behavior. She says she supports you, but mocks your purpose the moment it threatens her control. And the worst part? You blame yourself. You start walking on eggshells. You try harder, speak softer, and in the process, you begin losing the very masculinity that made her attracted to you in the first place. Have you ever felt exhausted by someone who was never physically violent, never openly disrespectful, but left you emotionally drained every time? That's not love. That's spiritual erosion. And the longer you stay in her performance, the more you forget what real feels like. Fake women don't always look fake. They don't come with warning labels. They come as your dream girl, attractive, emotionally aware, spiritually worded. They come wrapped in praise and compliments and promises. But behind the image is a different reality, one that takes and drains and deceives, subtly, silently, skillfully. You'll catch glimpses of it, in the way she never owns her mistakes, in the way her energy shifts the moment you stop chasing, in the way she makes you feel like the bad guy for asking for consistency. Most men only realize it after the damage is done, after their focus is gone, their self-worth shattered, their confidence cracked. This video isn't about calling women out. It's about protecting yourself from the kind of woman who doesn't want a relationship. She wants control. And the sooner you learn to spot the silent signs, the sooner you stop being her puppet and start being the man who can't be played. Because some signs hit you early, loud, obvious, easy to spot. But the ones near the end, they're different. They don't scream, they whisper. They wrap themselves in kindness, in softness, in the illusion of she's trying. And if you're not awake by then, that's when they cut the deepest. Not because you didn't see them, but because by the time you do, you're already in love with the lie. So stay with this, not just for the truth, but for the truths that don't show themselves until it's almost too late. 1. She acts sweet, but uses guilt to control you. Not all manipulation is loud. Sometimes it comes wrapped in softness. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't insult you directly. She just makes you feel bad every time you set a boundary. At first, she seems kind, sweet, easy to talk to. She laughs at your jokes, compliments your drive, tells you she loves how disciplined and focused you are. But slowly, something shifts. You start noticing that when you say no, even gently, her entire mood changes. She gets distant, withdraws affection, acts hurt, disappointed, almost heartbroken, as if you just betrayed her. You cancel a date to focus on work, and she says, "I just thought I mattered more." You don't answer a text immediately, and she replies, "It's fine. I'm used to being ignored." You express a concern, and she hits you with, "Wow, I guess I'm always the problem." Have you ever felt like you were apologizing for things you had every right to do? That's not love. That's emotional control, disguised as vulnerability. This kind of woman doesn't yell or fight directly. She manipulates with guilt. She turns every disagreement into an opportunity to flip the script. And over time, you start shrinking. You stop bringing things up. You stop speaking your truth. You silence yourself to keep the peace, and don't even realize it's happening. Why does this work? Because guilt is powerful, especially for masculine men who care, men who want to protect, support, and show up with strength. She weaponizes that instinct against you and turns your integrity into a leash. She makes you feel like a villain for putting yourself first, for choosing your purpose, for keeping your boundaries. And she does it all while playing the sweet girl card, so that if you call her out, you look like the abuser. It's a trap, and it works on good men, not weak ones. Because fake women know how to appear soft while exerting full control over your emotions. And the cost? You lose trust in your own judgment. You start questioning your instincts. You wonder if maybe you are too harsh, too selfish, too cold. Have you ever sat in silence after an argument, wondering how she made you feel guilty for standing up for yourself? That's not your weakness. That's her design. A real woman holds space for your boundaries. A fake one makes you feel like every boundary is a betrayal. And if you're not careful, you'll start thinking love is something you owe her, instead of something you both build with respect. 2. She craves validation from every man, even while dating you. If she needs constant attention from other men, she's not yours. She's everyone's. She might call you her boyfriend. She might say you're the only one she wants. But her behavior tells the truth. And the truth is, she's addicted to attention. You take her out. You give her compliments. You show up. You provide. But it's never enough. Because as soon as she walks into a room, her radar lights up. She needs eyes on her. She needs to be noticed. She posts the bikini pic that conveniently crops out her friends. She uploads gym selfies with captions that scream confidence, but whisper desperation. She checks who viewed her stories, not once, but 10 times a day. And the moment you stop reacting, she starts testing. Have you ever felt like she wanted more attention from strangers than intimacy from you? That's not insecurity, that's strategy. A fake woman doesn't want love. She wants to be wanted, not by one man, by every man. It's subtle. She'll say, "I didn't even notice he was flirting," or "I just like knowing I've still got it." But deep down, you know what's really happening. She's keeping her options warm because commitment doesn't excite her as much as being desired does. The psychology behind this is rooted in emotional emptiness. She doesn't feel worthy on her own, so she collects external proof. Every like, every stare, every DM, it's fuel for a fragile ego, and she'll keep feeding it, even if it costs you your peace. Because the more men who want her, the more she convinces herself she has value. And if you ever ask her why it bothers you, she'll flip the script. You're insecure. You don't trust me. You're trying to control me. But deep down, you're not jealous. You're intuitive. You see the games. You feel the energy. You know when a woman is building something real with you, and when she's just using your loyalty as a safety net while she shops for more attention. A woman who's truly present doesn't chase outside energy. She protects the bond. She guards your name in rooms you're not in. She turns down attention that could damage the relationship, even if no one would know. Have you ever asked yourself why she needed so much external validation when she already had your full attention? That's the sign. She doesn't want your energy. She wants the spotlight, and she'll never be satisfied, no matter how much of your soul you give. So pay attention to where her eyes go when she already has your heart. Because a woman who's still seeking the crowd has no intention of building something sacred. 3. She talks about loyalty, but keeps male friends who want her. If every man around her would sleep with her given the chance, she knows it. And if she keeps them close anyway, She's not loyal. She's strategic. She swears they're just friends. She says they've always been close. She tells you not to worry, that you're the one she comes home to. But every time she posts a story, he reacts with hard eyes. Every time she's out, he's there, conveniently available. You notice how she laughs a little harder when he compliments her, how she defends him when you question the dynamic, how she's quick to shut down your intuition, but never his behavior. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. Have you ever looked into her eyes while she explained a friendship you knew had hidden intentions, and felt that quiet voice inside you scream that something wasn't right? That voice is your ally. Because here's the truth. Men don't orbit women they're not interested in, and women know exactly which men are waiting to pounce the moment your relationship breaks. But a fake woman keeps them close, not by accident, but by design. She calls it harmless. She calls it platonic. But deep down, she knows she's keeping a backup, an emotional reserve, a replacement, just in case. And while you stay loyal, consistent, focused on the bond, she feeds those connections in the background. Flirty replies, inside jokes, subtle hints. It's not cheating, but it's not respect either. The psychology is simple. Fake women don't seek exclusivity. They seek leverage. Having other men desire her boosts her ego. It gives her options, and it keeps you in a subtle state of insecurity, because she knows that as long as you're unsure, you'll try harder to please her. But what it really does is drain you. It makes you question your place in her world. It makes you compete for a woman who claims she's already chosen you. And no man should ever have to fight for space he's already earned. Have you ever felt like she wanted your commitment, but not the boundaries that come with it? Like she wanted to be adored by you, while still being desired by others? That's not love, that's ego inflation. And it always ends the same. You lose your peace, she keeps her options, and the man who warned you in your gut turns out to be right. A real woman cuts off romantic attention the moment she commits. A fake woman calls it just friends. But deep down, she loves the attention more than she loves the truth. And sometimes, the most dangerous betrayal hides behind the most innocent smile. If this feels familiar, it's because your gut always knew. You just never had the words. And now that you do, you can't unsee it. But the signs don't stop here. The ones that come next, they're quieter, harder to explain, easier to dismiss. And that's exactly why they ruin good men without a trace. Miss them, and you won't even realize it's happening until your purpose is fading, your peace is gone, and you're apologizing for things you never did. So listen closely, because what's coming next could be the one truth that finally sets you free. 4. She mirrors your values, then slowly starts undermining them. She'll never challenge your values up front. She'll pretend to share them until you're attached enough to start letting go of them. That's the game. At first, she's everything you've been searching for. She agrees with your mindset. She's so impressed by your discipline. She says she loves your focus, your routines, your ambition. You talk about your goals. She listens wide-eyed. You hit the gym. She says she admires your consistency. You bring up Stoicism, purpose, standards. She nods like she's lived by them her whole life. And for a while it feels real. You finally think, she gets it. You let your guard down. You invest. You imagine building something powerful together. But slowly, the praise turns to pressure. She starts calling your routine obsessive. She says things like, "Can't you just skip the gym today?" She mocks your schedule, your planning, your focus. She starts sending passive-aggressive texts like, "Wow, I guess your goals matter more than me." And at first, you explain yourself. You compromise. You bend, just a little. And that's when it begins. Have you ever looked back and realized you slowly stopped doing the very things that made you feel like a man? Not because you chose to grow, but because you were subtly trained to trade your power for peace? Fake women don't confront your values directly. They mirror them. They mimic your mindset. And once you've dropped your guard, they start reshaping you, not into a better man, but into a more manageable one. Psychologically, this is identity erosion. It happens in small moments. You abandon the cold shower once a week. You sleep in instead of training. You stop journaling. You give up moments of solitude just to avoid disappointing her. And each time you give in, she loses more respect for you. Because deep down, she never wanted a strong man. She wanted the image of one, until it made her feel small. So she starts dulling your edge, not out of malice, but out of insecurity. And the more you compromise, the less she admires you. The very thing she said she loved about you becomes the thing she slowly tries to remove. Have you ever noticed that when you're fully in your purpose, some women pull closer, and others start pulling you off track? That's no accident. It's a test, not of love, but of power. A real woman aligns with your values because she lives them. A fake woman mirrors them to earn your trust, then chips away at them once she has it. And if you don't notice early, you'll wake up one day wondering how the strongest version of yourself got replaced by a man who's always explaining, always compromising, always tired. 5. She constantly mentions her ex, or uses him to manipulate you. If a man from her past is still living rent-free in her words, she's not over him. She's using him to control you. You're sitting across from her just trying to enjoy dinner, and somehow he comes up again. The ex, the one who never appreciated her, the one who was so toxic, the one who taught her what she doesn't want. At first you feel empathy. She's opening up. You think, she must really trust me to share this. But then it keeps happening. Random moments, subtle comparisons, jabs like, "My ex used to say that too," or "He never made time for me either, and it's happening again." And just like that, you're no longer building something new. You're being measured against someone who already failed. Have you ever felt like you were in a relationship with someone's past? And no matter what you did, you were stuck living in the shadow of another man's mistakes? That's not vulnerability. That's emotional manipulation. Because here's the truth. A fake woman will weaponize her past heartbreak to shape your behavior in the present. She'll use old pain as leverage. She'll make you walk on eggshells, not because you've done something wrong, but because someone else once did. You pull back to set a boundary? Suddenly, you're just like him. You need time to focus on your goals? Now you're neglecting her just like he did. She trains you to overcorrect, not to protect the relationship, but to make sure you never become him. And in doing that, she subtly gains control. Because now, every decision you make runs through the filter of, how do I avoid triggering her past? And when you're stuck in that place, your masculinity erodes. You start to shape yourself around her pain, not your purpose. The psychology behind this tactic is subtle but devastating. It keeps her emotionally connected to a past that gives her power in the present. It justifies her moods, excuses her disrespect, defends her criticism, because as long as the ex is the villain, she never has to take full responsibility for how she shows up now. And yet, you stay because you think you're helping. You think you're healing her. You think your patience is love. But the truth is, You're not her healer. You're her emotional punching bag. And she's not building a future with you. She's refighting her past through you. Have you ever caught yourself changing who you are just to avoid being compared to a man you've never even met? That's how deep this manipulation runs. A real woman lets go of what broke her. A fake one keeps it close because it gives her a script and keeps you in a role you were never meant to play. And if you don't recognize the pattern early, you'll spend your whole relationship proving you're not him instead of becoming the man you're meant to be. 6. She uses her healing journey as a shield from accountability. She's not healing. She's hiding behind the idea of healing to avoid growth. At first, it sounds honest. She tells you she's doing the work. She talks about her past trauma, the therapy, the shadow work, the energy shifts. She sprinkles her language with words like boundaries, triggers, nervous system, feminine energy. And you believe her because you're a man who respects growth. You know healing is real. You want a woman who's self-aware. But then, the contradictions start to show. She lashes out at you in anger, then blames her inner child. She avoids responsibility, then says she's in a trauma response. She ghosted you for a weekend, but calls it protecting her peace. Every toxic behavior becomes repackaged in spiritual vocabulary. Every red flag becomes a soft-colored excuse. And somehow, you're always the one expected to understand. Have you ever felt like you were constantly being asked to hold space, while she kept crossing lines you weren't allowed to cross? That's not growth. That's a performance. Because the truth is, healing doesn't make you perfect, but it does make you accountable. It makes you aware of your impact on others. It teaches you to own your patterns, not weaponize them. But a fake woman doesn't heal to become better. She heals to appear better. She collects knowledge to justify her dysfunction. And when you try to address it, she shuts you down. You're judging me. You don't understand trauma. You're being toxic. So now you're trapped. Because the moment you express pain, she frames it as aggression. The moment you set boundaries, she accuses you of being unsafe. And somehow, the more you try to be patient, the more your strength gets twisted into silence. Psychologically, this is a defense mechanism. It allows her to avoid shame by turning every issue into a spiritual bypass. She's not interested in change. She's interested in control. And the easiest way to maintain that control is by cloaking immaturity in the language of growth. And if you're a man with depth, if you're grounded, emotionally aware, and patient, you become the perfect target. Because you'll try to hold space, you'll try to be understanding, you'll try to be safe. Until you wake up one day feeling like the therapist in a relationship where you're never allowed to have your own needs. Have you ever felt emotionally exhausted, not from arguments, but from constantly carrying the emotional weight she refuses to lift herself? That's the weight of a woman who uses healing as a costume, not a path. A real woman heals to reconnect with truth. A fake woman heals to avoid it. And the longer you entertain the illusion, the more you lose sight of the difference between holding space and getting swallowed by someone else's storm. 7. She sabotages you when you're focused or leveling up. Some women don't want to grow with you. They want to keep you close enough to control but small enough not to leave. Watch what happens when you start elevating. You hit the gym harder. You wake up earlier. You double down on your mission. And suddenly, she becomes cold. Not in obvious ways. Not screaming. Not fighting. But through silence. Subtle jabs. Shifts in tone. She starts saying things like, "You've changed. You're always busy now. You care more about your goals than you care about me." And maybe you think she's just feeling insecure. Maybe you slow down a bit. Give her more time. Reassure her. You compromise, just a little, to keep the peace. But the more you pull back from your purpose, the more she relaxes, the more connected she suddenly feels. Because deep down, she doesn't feel safe when you're rising. She feels replaced. Have you ever noticed how the woman who once praised your ambition suddenly resents it the moment it starts creating distance? That's not love pulling away. That's control being threatened. Fake women don't want your growth. They want your availability. They're not afraid you'll fail. They're afraid you'll succeed without needing them. And so they start to sabotage emotionally. They pick fights on your most important days. They withhold affection right after your wins. They plant doubt when you're making momentum. They don't do this consciously to destroy you. They do it because your independence activates their deepest fear, that they're no longer the center of your life. And here's what makes it dangerous. You won't even notice it's happening until you feel drained. You'll think you're the one being cold. You'll feel guilty for staying focused. You'll start apologizing for winning. Because real growth exposes the difference between a partner and a distraction. And the moment your vision sharpens, so does your awareness of who's truly walking beside you and who's trying to quietly pull you back. Have you ever looked at your life and realized the moments you felt least supported were the exact moments you needed it the most? That's not coincidence. That's sabotage. A fake woman thrives when you're doubting yourself, because your doubt keeps you dependent. It keeps you explaining. It keeps you small. But a real woman doesn't fear your greatness. She fans the flame. She helps you carry the weight of your goals, not question if they matter. And when you finally stop shrinking to protect her comfort, that's when you'll know you've outgrown more than just a relationship. You didn't just watch a list of red flags. You walked through the quiet battlefield most men never talk about. The slow, silent erosion of self. The subtle manipulation hidden behind beauty, softness, and sweet words. And now you see it. Not with bitterness, not with hate, but with clarity. You see how easy it is to fall for the idea of a woman, to ignore your gut, override your instincts, and convince yourself to keep giving. You see how dangerous it is when charm replaces character, when femininity is used as a disguise, not a gift. And you've felt the cost, the fatigue, the self-doubt, the feeling of being drained while she plays the victim. But now you also know this. You are not weak for falling into it. You were strong enough to feel. You were loyal enough to stay. You were focused enough to want to build something real. And that makes you rare. Most men stay asleep. They call it love when it's just emotional compliance. They call it chemistry when it's just addiction. They call it passion when it's really just chaos. But you chose awareness. You looked the truth in the eye and didn't blink. And that choice alone makes you a threat in a world that thrives on confused, passive men. So what now? You evolve. You sharpen your eyes. You stop explaining your worth and start protecting your energy. Not out of fear, but out of respect. For yourself. For your mission. For the woman who's actually ready for you. Because now, you no longer chase validation from women who've mastered the game of appearing good. You seek alignment with the rare ones who are actually good, who stand beside you, not above you, who meet your depth, not manipulate it, who walk in truth, even when no one's watching. And if that feels far away right now, it's not. Because the moment you choose to stop giving your light to women who thrive in shadows, you make space for something real, something solid, something clean. A man's peace begins the moment he stops mistaking chaos for connection. You've seen behind the mask now, so wear your scars like armor, move with calm, speak with less. And remember, You are no longer the man who ignores what he feels, just to keep what he should have walked away from.